November the 16th, 1972. A paper was released to the public exposing the details of what experiment the government were conducting in Alabama. It regarded 600 African American men, 399 with syphilis, and 101 without the disease. This was about the Tuskegee experiment. The paper was the first public statement about the experiment. It stated that the experiment was still ongoing. Up to this point, there was already 128 participants died of the illness. Most of them did not have an education nor a job. As they were poor and did not have any money, they were an easy catch for the government that promised them hot meals, free education exams, and little sum of money. None of the participants were told if they were affected or not. This caught the public's eye and inflicted outrage. This was due to the unethical treatment of the participants involved in the experiment. This led to the experiment being shut down the very same month. A few years later, a report was issued regarding the ethical principles and guidelines for research involving human subjects. It was issued September 13th, 1979 by the National Commission for Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research. Its full title is The Belmont Report, Ethical Principle and Guidelines for Protection of the Human Subjects of Research, Report of the National Commission for Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research. Okay, what's up with the name? With it introduced 3 core principles that every experiment conducted in the US had to meet. The first core principle was respecting the human subjects in the experiment. Researchers had to be truthful with them. The second core principle was the researchers must have lowered the risk for their subjects. The third core principle was justice. The researchers must have been reasonable with the human subjects and they should be treated equally. August 14th to the 20th, 1971. A professor named Philip Zimbardo were conducting an experiment using college students. In the experiment, volunteers were randomly assigned either to be guards or prisoners in a mock-up prison. The very first day, everything went completely normal and nothing was to worry about. Even Zimbardo had to think about if he wanted really to conduct this experiment, because it was too boring. The next day was a whole other story. The experiment quickly got out of hand and soon the guards began taking it too far. They would harass them, they would beat them, they would suffer them, and they would not let them go. The Stanford prison experiment violates every single core principle that the Belmont Report contains. Although the Stanford experiment were happening before the Belmont Report was written, it was still a massive outrage over the experiment.
I was told that I couldn't quit. And at that point, I felt that, well, it was really a prison. And at that point, I don't know, there's no way I can describe how I felt. I just felt totally hopeless. More hopeless than I'd ever felt before.
They violated the first principle by not respecting the prisoners. They were not letting them go and they did not tell them how to get out. The researchers did not keep their words. The contract was violated really quickly. Therefore, they were not being truthful. The second principle were violated by not keeping the prisoners out of harm. Not only did one of the prisoners get beaten up, they would also mentally push them to the edge until they broke down.
Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner 819 did a bad thing.
The last principle was completely thrown out the window. The guards and the prisoners were completely treated differently. The guards were given a lot more power than the prisoners. You could even say the prisoners did not have anything.